Good morning, everybody. This morning I am planting wildflower seeds. It is early December. I'm just a bit late, but I think I am in plenty of time to catch the winter rains. So when you're planting wildflower seeds in the Southwest, between, I would say, late October, early November, and maybe late December or January, that is the perfect time because you can put those seeds down and scatter them, and then hopefully we will get the seasonal rains, and then that will provide the perfect conditions, both cooler temperatures and seasonal moisture, for those seeds to germinate and then to provide a beautiful spring bloom for us and for the pollinators. I got 3 different types. I have the native Southwest wildflower seed mix, I have the native Western xeriscape wildflower seed mix, and then I just have straight up California poppies. So that is what I've got, but I want to show you a couple of little tricks that I do to improve the success rate. The first thing is sand. I like to mix my wildflower seeds in a ratio of like 1 to 1. So if I have a third of this bowl filled with sand, then I will put a third of it with wildflower mix, which is why I bought these really big packages. Now, if you're just sowing a very small area, then you can adjust that accordingly. Obviously, you wouldn't use a bowl this big, or maybe get packets that are this big, and that'll save you some money too. I'm using this sand to help me evenly disperse the seeds better. So when you're planting wildflower seeds and you have a whole handful of seeds, you run the risk of getting clumps because you sowed them too heavy in certain areas. But when I have them mixed with sand, it's much easier to get less seed in every handful because they are mixed in with the sand. And then I find that I get a more even sowing of wildflower seeds, and the wildflowers do much better that way because they have less competition around them. So that is one trick. Really, all you need is a bowl of sand, you need a good rake like this one, and you need your seeds. So let me take you up front where I'm going to sow them, and I'll show you how I do it. Up in front of my house, I've got this big old saguaro, a couple mesquite trees, and this circular area. Right now it's full of native grasses that I'm just letting stand in spite of the fact that they look a bit messy because I want them to drop their seeds and self-sow for next year. Also, it is caterpillar season and there are a lot of caterpillars in those grasses, so I don't want to cut down their little habitat just yet. But I am going to be sowing some wildflower seeds in here so that I can have a lovely spring bloom. The first thing you want to do is pick out a location that gets full sun and has well draining soil. Our native wildflower seeds will not want to have soggy feet. The next thing you want to do if you have compacted ground is take a rake and just lightly rake the surface to loosen that first layer of soil up. And that's because those wildflower seeds are going to need good contact with the soil. There are a lot of old dried plants here, a lot of wildflowers from the summer, as well as a few weeds, but never mind that. I'm just going to rake this area up. Once you get the area raked up, then it is time to sow your wildflowers. So let's do that next. Since I have 3 different kinds of seed packets here, I'm just going to put a little bit of each into this bowl of sand and mix it up. That way I have all kinds of varieties. And all of these varieties are going to do well growing in the same conditions. If you're mixing seeds together to create your own seed mix, just make sure you're choosing seed varieties that will grow well with the same sun exposure and the same amount of water and under the same conditions. All right, so I put quite a few of those. This is the native Southwest wildflower seed mix. Next, I'm going to put in the xeriscape seed mix. And also give your bags a good shake so that they're nice and mixed, because otherwise you'll have not a very good even distribution of seeds from the bag. The heavier seeds will sink to the bottom. And then last but certainly not least are those poppy seeds. So when you do that, once I get the seeds into this bowl of sand, I am just going to mix them together really well. That way I can just toss them around and then we'll move on to the next step. Can you see that there are an even mix of seeds in here. I can see all different types of seeds, so they just kind of get suspended and mix into that sand, and I think that really helps a lot. The next thing you want to do is just gently scatter these all over the area like that. To make this easier, I will just go by section. So I'm going to do a little bit here, and then if I have time, I'll do the next section today, and if not, tomorrow. And by week's end, I will have it all finished. Last year, we had the most beautiful display of poppies in this whole area. This whole circle was just on fire, and all the neighbors that drove by just remarked at how beautiful it was, and I have to agree. So that's the look I'm going for this year. It was just alive with bees and other little pollinators that were first on the scene last year. So it was great. I'm hoping some of the wildflower seeds that bloomed here last spring also self-seeded, and that the birds spared me a few seeds so that I can have some volunteers. That's what I would really like to do, is to be able to count on them reseeding themselves so I don't have to buy those seed mixes every year. I did save some bluebell seeds from last year because I had a huge population of them in my garden in the back next to my fig trees, and I saved probably a whole mason jar full of seeds from those. So I'm going to be scattering those too. So it'd also be nice if I could collect a few, but for some varieties the seeds are really small, so that's hard to do. But I do hope that I can get a population year after year that will re-sow themselves so I can do less work and spend less money. The next thing you want to do is ensure your seeds are in good contact with the soil surface. So we raked up our soil first to make a nice soft soil bed for the seeds to fall on. Now we want to gently press them in. A lot of these wildflowers are good for surface sowing, so you don't necessarily need to come through here and cover them all up. They will grow where they fall in nature, so that's what we want to try to emulate here. What I like to do is just gently walk across the surface of the soil after I've sown the seeds and press them in with my shoes. That way I know that they are in good contact with the soil. If you're doing a small area, you could also just lightly press them into the soil surface with your hands. Either one of those things will work. All right, once you are finished, hopefully you will get seasonal rains to help these wildflowers germinate on their own. If it's a dry year, which we have been having far too frequently, and the winter rains just don't appear, you can water once or twice a week with a sprinkler or hand water if it's a smaller area, just to kind of help aid in that germination, and hopefully those winter rains will arrive. Last year we did not get our winter rains until really late. I think where I live it was early February before we really got any significant rain at all. That really affected the wildflower bloom last year. When I went out hiking, I noticed there just weren't very many. So if you want to have a few wildflowers in your garden or yard and you're not getting the winter rains as you expect and as the wildflower seeds need, just help them along and water them a couple times a week lately. Planting a little patch of wildflowers in your yard will be such a gift to the pollinators that will arrive in early spring looking for blooms when there is not a whole lot blooming in the garden. Our pollinators, like bees and butterflies and moths and beetles and wasps and so many other little pollinators that are so tiny we don't always notice them, they depend on these wildflowers to provide them with nectar and with pollen so that they can do their work and we can enjoy watching them, and also the beautiful, colorful wildflower show that will result from just this simple effort of spreading a few wildflower seeds. If you're interested in planting wildflower seeds, I will leave some links in the description box below for some sources of seed that I think are really good, so you can check those out. I'm Kara from Arizona. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy gardening.